Alright, so I've been slacking and I haven't made a video in a little bit, but here's the worm bin. We've got worms. They arrived a few weeks ago now. Uh, I was traveling and I had Christmas and everything, so I've been behind on updating the channel, but here we are. So, I've got an agenda here of things I'm going to talk about there on my laptop, and I'll be showing you what I've done since then. So put that there. You'll actually get to see me, so that's cool. And then let's get started. So, I made a video showing this bin, so I assume you've seen that. So you know what's going on here in terms of the bin, but not what's going on inside. So let me talk about my past experiences doing worms for composting purposes. I had some storage totes in my parents' basement when I lived with them, and that was a good spot because it was a very consistent temperature location, but it had some problems, and you'll see, both with how I had it set up and the location. So it was just storage totes stacked on top of each other. So the bottom one was no drainage holes, obviously, to catch water to liquid if I had too much liquid in there. And then I had actually had my dad help me put on a spigot to that one. So we had cut a hole in it, and we had put a pipe in it, and then I had a little ball valve, and we could drain it out if we wanted to. I never had enough liquid to drain out, so I realized don't actually need that. So that's why this setup is just one bin. I'm not trying to do any stacking. It's just one bin, and if I ever want to harvest compost out of this, I'll just feed on one side, so they all go to one side, and then I'll take the compost out of the side that they're not on. Much simpler than having to have a stacking system. Stacking system would be more applicable if I had a much higher volume of compost happening here, which is not the case. So, but yeah, that was the stacking sort of deal. And with the stacking system, if you're just doing it at home and you're not buying the custom like worm tower, like branded ones, if you're just stacking bins, there's no sealing. There's no sealing happening. Not like a ceiling. There's no seals. There's no way to prevent worms from getting out and critters from getting in. And you'll see why that was a problem in a second when I tell you. So it was in the basement. I had the stacking bins. Unrelated to that, probably related because they got in, I think, I had in that worm bin in my parents' basement some sort of red bugs get in the bin and then populate it. I don't know if they were mites or what they were. They kind of reminded me of the red things you see on the pavement, on the sidewalk. Not 100% sure what they were, but I didn't like them, so I tried to prevent them. And I noticed they were congregating under some newspaper I had laying on top, so I just stopped having newspaper on top, and that seemed to make them go away. Hopefully I don't have that experience again. I'm not sure where they came from, though, so I don't really know how to prevent it. Yeah. And also, that basement that I was doing that in had a lot of centipedes in it already. And as I lost interest in that project and neglected to feed the worms, the worm bin became overrun with centipedes. So one day I pulled up my top bin that was covering everything, and I saw probably 5 centipedes hanging out on this outside. And I dug around a little bit. Oh, and there was one in the dirt, and there's another one. I was like, okay, I'm just going to scrap this. And at that point, I hadn't fed it in a few months, and so it was all just pure clean dirt, barely any worms because they had worked it so much. And I took it outside and I dumped it in the alley. So I abandoned that project basically because I didn't like the fact that my now abandoned project was effectively just breeding centipedes. And I didn't like centipedes, and I don't like centipedes, so I didn't want to keep doing that. So that bin was basically a failure, but it wasn't all bad. It definitely showed me a lot about the hobby of worm keeping for composting. I had, at that point, I was freezing everything, and then I would put it in after it was frozen. And that's something I didn't do at the start of this bin, but I'm doing here on out. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But that previous bin that I did was definitely, it ended in a failure, but it was definitely a learning experience. And so I'm not upset that I had done it. It was a net positive, I believe. I had put things in it and watched them decompose. I had put probably dozens and dozens of banana peels in the bin, and they all turned into dirt, which is the whole point. So that was really, really cool for me to see, and definitely is encouraging. And I hope to see the same happen here. And I think I have seen the same happen here already. And also, I had put pumpkin rinds and watermelon rinds and watched those disappear in a matter of days. You could check on it every few hours and see, oh, it's actually smaller already, because those things are mostly water anyway. So yeah, that is my past experiences with worm bins. So now on to this one. I already made a video showing the bin and how I made it and what I've done to the lid. I have that thing there. And I've only added one more piece of hardware, which is a spoon, so I can dig around in here. This is a worm spoon. I'm not going to use this for anything else. It's going to hang out in the bin on top. So that's what that's for. This bin is transparent. Not a thing I see a lot online when I'm looking at worm bins. If it's an issue, I will spray paint it black so that it's not an issue. But I don't think it's been an issue so far. I've had this bin with worms in it for I don't know how many days now, and I have not seen any sort of I'm worried about algae growth. I don't know, because if transparent things, if there's too much moisture, they can grow algae. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I don't think it's going to be that moist. Like if it was a fish tank, yeah, might get algae growth in the water, right? But I don't think that's the thing that can actually happen on just a moist surface. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I just found this piece of colored paper. I'm going to remove that. I'm not sure what that was from. It's probably fine, but I'm going to remove it just in case. So yeah, if the transparency is an issue, it might scare the worms too. I don't know. It'll just keep them out of the surface. It'll just keep them in the actual clump of dirt as opposed to on top, which isn't all bad because I buried the food anyway. But if I think it's an issue, I'll spray paint it black, which I'd like not to do because I don't own any spray paint at the moment. I have to buy it. But if it's an issue, I can solve it pretty easily. Spray paint it. So that's that. Airflow. I don't know if this is enough airflow or if it's too much airflow or what. Because it's that much. There's a couple of big spots and then there's a bunch of holes. And then it's also all bottlenecked through the coffee filter. So I don't know if that's enough airflow or if it's not enough airflow or what. So I do know I had put a lot of moisture in it until it was like a run out sponge. You can get just a couple drops out of it if you squeeze a handful of it. And then a few days later I did it again and it was already noticeably drier. I think that's partly just because all of the liquid had soaked up into the cardboard I had put over here on this side. I think that's going to transfer properly. That's still left. I don't know. So one thing I am doing to control moisture is I'm going to add more bits of cardboard. I've already cut a little bit of it up. Just these little tiny pieces of cardboard off of this. This is some thick cardboard that came with the knife block I got for Christmas. So I'm going to cut that up and put it in here. And one thing about having more bedding is that you can more easily regulate the water. Because the more sponges you have, the more easy it is to regulate how wet all the sponges are. Because if you just have one, it's going to dry out really fast, and it only takes a little bit of water to get it way too wet. Whereas if you have a lot of sponges, a little bit of water doesn't make a big difference. So you can put a lot, and then it'll be consistently moist. And when it dries out, it'll dry out slowly because there's a lot of absorbing mass there. Yeah. That's the same thing with fish tanks. If you have a fish tank, it's better to go big than to go small because you can control the parameters of a large fish tank much more easily over time than you can a small fish tank. A small fish tank is going to get its ammonia and nitrates way up really fast, and when you change the water, it's going to bring them all back down really fast. So there's massive sways and swings in the parameters. But with a big fish tank, you do a partial water change, you just change it a little bit, and when ammonias go up and nitrates go up, it just goes up a little bit as a portion of the whole. So it's easier to control when you have a bigger thing. So I'm going to put more bedding. I'm not going to put more food yet, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm going to do more bedding to make it easier to control moisture. So that's that. Potential mouse access. This house I live in is out in the middle of nowhere, and there are mice in the house. Not in the living area, except when they get in there. They're in the basement. I don't see them when I go down there, but they're clearly there because sometimes I find a dead one. The fact of living in the country. If a mouse really wanted to, he could definitely get through this. There's some big holes here. He could eat through the filter and he could get in. I don't think a mouse will try to do that because I keep the food covered. So every aroma coming out of this bin should just be dirt smell. If I had fruit exposed, then it might smell like fruit and maybe a mouse would try to get in there. But as long as I'm doing it right and I'm burying all the food, it should only smell like dirt. So a mouse should not try to get in. But if a mouse wanted to, he definitely could. That's why I'm also putting this on top of it. It doesn't really prevent a mouse. He can still get underneath it, but I'm just hoping it's one more thing that's going to prevent the idea from forming in the mouse's head. Oh, I should dig here, right? So if that's the case and a mouse does get in and mess everything up, A, I'll have to get him out because he's not going to be able to get out of here on his own. He's effectively going to be trapped. And B, once I do that, I'll put some like metal screening over top of the coffee filter. That way, no animal can get in, like screen door screening. So I'll address that problem if it becomes one. I just spilled water. The gasket, the seal, the blue seal on this lid does work. No worms have gotten out as far as I can tell. They can't even get so far as to get on top of the lid, I think. So, success with that. I'm glad I bought this bin. And that's why it's transparent. If I could find one with a seal that was also opaque, I would have done that. But you can only get them with seals or opaque, not both. At least at my Walmart. It's a pretty small Walmart, so I'm not surprised. Having said that, every time I check on the bin, there's at least 5 worms hanging out on the rim up top here, trying to get out. They also could just be exploring. I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with the actual bedding that's scaring them away. I think they're just exploring. Because if there was something wrong with the bedding, if it was too acidic or if it was too wet or it was too dry, then all of them would be trying to escape. Whereas I only have 5 up here, and the other 100 or whatever that came in my Uncle Jim's bag, they're all still in the dirt eating the banana peels. So I think we're fine there. I don't think that's anything for me to be concerned about. So as mentioned earlier, I'm going to start freezing all the food before I put it into the bin. That's because I think I've introduced fruit fly eggs, because every time I open it, a single fruit fly flies out, which is annoying. As long as I just keep letting them out, eventually they'll all be gone. But this can be prevented by, obviously, the fruit flies just come with the bananas. Like, some banana peels just have fruit fly eggs on or embedded in them. That's just a fact of bananas. Sometimes you get fruit flies. And all fruits. Sometimes you get fruit flies with it. Yeah, so you can prevent that by freezing the food, and that kills the eggs, so they can't hatch. So that's what I'm going to do going forward. Also, freezing it, I don't know, breaks cell walls or something, and it makes it easier to decompose for the worms and for bacteria. So I'm going to start freezing my food. And that's all my bullet points. So, yeah. So I guess now on to what I've done inside of the bin so far. So what I did was I had shredded newspaper. You already saw that. I had it in the bin. And when I got my Uncle Jim's bag, it was this. Oops, I dropped my spoon. It was this, and it was full to maybe here. I don't know. It's full to here with dirt. It was all right. So it arrived kind of looking like that. There was a bunch of dirt in here. It was really dry, and there was a bunch of worms that were all shriveled up. And that's just because there was no water for 3 days while they were shipping. 3, 4, 5 days. I don't know how long they were in shipping. So I put them in the bin, dumped them out lightly, and then I buried a banana peel in that heap of dirt. I'm pretty sure that banana peel disappeared. Like, I'm pretty sure they ate it and it decomposed because I didn't move it, and that dirt pile was then just dirt. I didn't find a banana peel. So I think that banana peel has actually decomposed, which really fast. So that either that or I've simply misplaced it within the bin and it's actually still in here. I don't know. What I do know is that since then I have taken that dirt pile and I have mixed it with the rest of the paper and I've wetted it down so that it's the right moisture level. If I grab this and I squeeze it, oh, there's banana peel in there. I squeeze it. Well, it's actually a little bit more moist than it should be. It had way too much water coming out of there. So I should actually not put any more water for a little bit. I had put a lot of water in it last time I opened it, so yeah, little moment of learning for me. I should not. I didn't test it last time before I put water in it. I just like kind of felt the top and I was like, it's pretty dry. So I'll put a little bit more of this in here, and hopefully it won't be as dry next time I check on it. And I'm also going to put, I think the rest of this, I'm going to put in there as well. And then I'll let it set for a few hours so it can homogenize all the moisture. And then I'll see how wet it is then in the next couple days. So yeah, so I guess right now it's too wet. I just learned right here. And so yeah, in there's already like 3 bananas worth of banana peels and some cucumber skins. I'm not going to feed the bin again until I find that most of those have significantly decomposed, because it's not good to overfeed your bin. I think right where I'm at right now is okay. For the number of worms that I have, I think we're good. So yeah, let me get in here and show you it a little bit more. I had you look at here. So if I dig in here, you can actually see if I get the right spot. Maybe. There we go. There's some worms in there. And they are going for the banana peels, so that whenever I've been rummaging in here before I started the camera, so they're all kind of hiding in places I haven't rummaged yet. Maybe if I come over here, I'll find some more. There we go. Look at all of them. There's a bunch of worms right there under this, which was a banana peel covering on top of them. It's like bugs under a rock, except it's bugs, except it's worms, and instead of a rock, it's a banana peel. So they are definitely chowing down on the food that I've already put in there. So, yeah. Grab, come on. All right. And this is a coffee filter that I put in here. Whenever I put in some coffee grounds in the future, I'm going to not put in the filter because it takes longer to break down than the rest of the stuff. But I do have this one in here just as a point of curiosity for me to find out how long it takes to break down. It would break down faster if I would bury it, but it's whatever. It also absorbs moisture and acts as a moisture bank. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. Yeah. So that's what's going on here. This over here is just a bunch of cardboard that I put over here. I was kind of just playing around with it to see if I could have a bunch of cardboard in one spot that could act as a sort of a buffer for moisture. When the bin gets dry, this would have moisture in it and would even out. What I'm probably going to do is end up just cutting this all up into shreds and mixing it. Not mixing it, but putting it on top. Maybe lightly mixing it. Because I think it's just, there's no point to having it be like separated. I should just have it all be one, I think. Instead of trying to fiddle around with having a high moisture side and a low moisture side. It should just all be good. It's not a big deal. I think I'm overthinking it there. So yeah, that'll probably go in the future. But yeah. And you can see I don't actually have that much like actual mass here in terms of like it doesn't even go all the way over to the side. I have a blank spot here that doesn't have any bedding. If I spread it all out, I think I'm worried that it'll be too thin and they won't like it. But that'll fill in as everything decomposes and I add more things. So not something I'm concerned about. So yeah, that's it for this video, I think. I hope I've answered any questions that might have arisen. But yeah, I will see everyone who's watching in the next video. Bye-bye.